this was a team I thought that our fan base could really get behind and be proud of.
Welcome into the Scarlet Shootaround podcast, following the beat of Husker basketball. Here are your hosts, Blake and Mike.
Nebraska out-hearts the Indiana Hoosiers for a statement win, 86-70. Hello, everybody, and welcome in again to the Scarlet Shootaround podcast. My name is Blake, here with co-host Mike. This time, I'm causing the difficulty in technology here as I'm in a hotel in Austin, Texas. But, Mike, the show must go on, so it's my turn to make sure that this works. I know we're recording a little bit late tonight, but what a big win for the Huskers. We're only a 4-point favorite, and we win by 10+.
Absolutely massive. I think coming into the game, I obviously wasn't too necessarily confident. I took the points, as I recall. But if I had known Rink Mass was going to play, I'd like to say maybe I wouldn't have, but I still think I probably would have. So huge win for the Huskers, though. Yeah, 16 points, massive W, statement win, maybe some might want to say. I know Indiana isn't the typical blue blood dominant team that they always are, but still a solid squad, and get off to a 2-1 start in conference play is huge.
And I'm glad you always disclose that this is not financial advice, because we went 0 for 2 in those picks. And, you know, you hate to say that we were doubting our own team, but it is what it is. We're just trying to make money here. So, no, but let's get into it. Mike Tominaga with 28-1-1. Obviously, the story of the night goes 9 for 15 from the field, 4 of 10 from deep. This is his coming out party. And Mike, he's finally made a statement that I'm still here.
Yeah, I think some people were, me included, some people were wondering if he still had it in him, not being the focal point of the offense this year. But to see him come out with his family in town and drop 28, really impressive. Hit a couple big threes, some classic Tominaga threes where they just back iron straight down. You love to see it just as pure as it gets. So massive from him. Loved what I saw from the rest of the team too, to be honest.
Bryce Williams goes for 15, 6-1, shooting 50% from the field on 5 of 10, 3 for 4 from deep. And Mike, this is an amazing stat line for only 23 minutes of play. He was in foul trouble early on and still was able to accumulate an awesome stat line.
Yeah, you mentioned the foul trouble. I think there's a little bit of ref ball going on in the first half, particularly. I think pretty easy whistles coming out. So I know we struggled with some foul trouble. Indiana was also in a little bit of foul trouble, but yeah, Bryce came out, had a really good game, 4 steals. I think that's a career high for him, which you love to see. I think the team had, 15 steals total. So active hands, getting in the passing lanes. If we can carry that forward, I think that'd be big for us. We started the season, we'd never really got a lot of takeaways. We were never forcing a lot of turnovers. So that's been a pleasant surprise these last couple of games.
And Mike, due to the foul trouble, C.J. Wilcher had an opportunity for more extended minutes. He has a stat line of 11 points, 1 rebound, did not record an assist. Shot 3 of 6 from the field. All 6 of those attempts were from 3, so 50% from deep for this game. Amazing work from him off the bench. And, Mike, those three-pointers that he made brought him to 40% shooting from the three-point line this year.
Much improved from last year, I know. If you would have told me he was shooting 40%, 12, 13, 14 games into the season – last year, I'm not sure I would have believed you, but here we are, and I couldn't be more happy about it. I know he provided a real big spark, especially in the first half. In the second half, he went down. He had some back spasms, I believe, so didn't get a lot of minutes, towards the end of the game. But in the first half, it seemed like for a little while there, he was really our only source of offense. Shots didn't seem to fall for a whole lot of anybody else but him, so it was nice for him to come in, give us a spark, 11 points, and keep the offense afloat while nobody else could really get a shot to go down.
Jamarcus Lawrence has a surprise game, goes for 12, 3, and 3, also shooting 50% from the field on 4 of 8. Hits 2 3-pointers out of his 6 attempts. And Mike, this is a nice shooting game from Jamarcus Lawrence. He also had 4 steals on the defensive end, so really good game from him.
Yeah, I'd venture to say his best game of the year. Box scores can, they don't tell you the whole story, but he did lead the team in plus minus at plus 19. So he was our most effective guy if you just want to go by the raw numbers. But yeah, just watching him play, as you mentioned, hitting 2 threes. I know we kind of talked about leading up to this game a little bit that it seemed like maybe when he's looking for a shot, he's been playing a little bit better. And I feel like he's kind of realizing that now. He can still get a shot, 8 shot attempts. It's not it's not a Keisei Tominaga 15 shot attempts by any means, but still getting a good amount of shots up and being effective when he does it. As you mentioned, shooting 50%, added 2 free throws. So very effective game from him on both ends, like you said.
Mast came back from his knee surgery. We were very questionable on whether he was going to play or not. I believe Jake Muehlheisen came out on the radio pregame saying that he was expected to play 15 to 20 minutes. Mast ends up with a stat line of 9, 3, and 3, shooting 3 of 10 from the field. Did not make any of his three-point attempts, which has dropped him, I think, close to that 30% line for threes on the year. But Mike, coming off of surgery, he played really as good as we could have asked him, especially on the defensive end.
I think, 30 minutes I think he's just under, is a little bit more than maybe Fred and the team had hoped for. I think, in coach's post-game presser, he said that they didn't have a set minutes restriction by any means, but they wanted to ease him back in. So maybe 30 minutes isn't exactly what they're looking for. As I'd mentioned with the foul trouble, a little tough not to when you just need bodies out there, but very, very impressive game. He was second on the team in plus minus at plus 17. So even when he's not shooting and scoring necessarily to the level we know he can, like you said, his defense and what he provided down low against an Indiana team that really wanted to attack the paint was very important for us.
Then we can't go on without mentioning Josiah Alec. Obviously didn't have a stat line that blew you away or anything along those lines, but Mike, he brought hustle, heart, and energy to every single play, diving on the floor the entire game, getting in passing lanes, keeping his teammates, morale up. He played his role perfectly tonight. And Fred Hoiberg had talked about trying to bring that level of consistency to all games going forward, and he thought this is their best example that they've showed this year. So, Mike, Fred talked about, being consistent on offense and defense and maintaining that, trying to wash away the second half of what we saw from the Minnesota game. What can you say to the point that Alec brings exactly what this team needs from an emotional standpoint?
Yeah, I think he's probably one of the emotional leaders of this team. He's, I don't know if anybody that listens to this is a big Husker volleyball fan, but he reminds me a lot of his sister, which isn't a surprise. Both very emotionally high energy people. Love to see that from them. Like I said, maybe I think he might be the emotional leader. He comes out, he's doing all the dirty stuff. I think he led the team with 8 rebounds this game against Indiana, which is a big part against a big front court that Indiana had. As you mentioned, diving on the balls. He's doing a lot of the dirty work that doesn't necessarily show up in the stat line in the box score, but he's an invaluable part of this team and what he's contributed so far, that's for sure.
And then, Mike, I tweeted this out during the game as we were kind of seeing it live develop in the first half. We got to see the strength of the Huskers' depth for the first time this year due to having so much foul trouble early in this game. We had Juwan Gary with 2 fouls early. Bryce Williams had his second foul, I believe, at the 13 or 14-minute mark. And then Sam Hoiberg came off the bench and had 2 fouls, both of them kind of ticky-tacky. But, Mike, with 3 guys in foul trouble in the first half, we brought in Wilcher off the bench. Eli Rice had a little bit of a run there at the end of the first half. We really did not see any kind of talent drop-off on the floor the entire first half.
Yeah, not at all. We went 8 deep-ish in this game. CJ only played 13 minutes. As I had mentioned, he had back spasms. But to go 8 deep and not have any drop-off, like you said, we've been talking about it all year, how important depth is to this team. And when it comes to conference play, how important that can be. And I think this is the first real example of that, where if it is a light whistle and, teams are pounding it inside and you get into foul trouble, we can go to a lot of different lineups. And we have a lot of guys that can play, a lot of guys that do their job and do it well. And it's only going to help us down the stretch here this season.
Another interesting facet of this game, Mike, that I caught on, right out of the gate, I think Nebraska started with a 1-3-1 zone, and then later we played a little bit of a 2-3 zone until Indiana started to exploit it. What a fantastic defensive game plan from the Huskers coaching staff there to implement a zone against an Indiana team that refused, quite frankly, to shoot the ball in this game.
Yeah, there were plenty of times where, they'd get a drive and a swing, a pass, a kick to a wide open guy on the 3, and we'd close out and they just would never shoot the ball. So as we'd mentioned coming in, they're not a team that's looking to shoot the 3. They don't do it particularly well. So I think, props to the coaches, props to the players for executing the game plan well. Even a couple times watching the game, the commentators had mentioned how the Huskers are just packing the paint, which is exactly what you want to do against this team. They're trying to score close to the paint. They're trying to utilize those big bodies they have. So as I said, all the credit goes to the coaching staff for implementing a game plan to help out. They held, Indiana shooting only, I think, 47% from the field, which isn't anything to write home about necessarily. They did shoot 50% from three, but a lot of that was in garbage time. So when they're kind of desperate to start shooting them to try to claw back a bit. So really, really impressive from the coaching staff and the players on implementing that zone, using it, here and there to mix things up and keep Indiana on their toes.
And then finally, a point of topic that will always be connected to this podcast for now and for the eternity of time. Sandstorm was not played. There was a perfect opportunity for it as Indiana and Mike Woodson called a timeout coming in out of the second half before the 16U timeout there in the second half. I believe either someone got a dunk or Indiana turned it over a couple times. I don't remember the exact scenario, but it was so blatantly obvious of a perfect situation to play Sandstorm. And Mike, it was not played. Now, something was played. There's some sort of electronic hype music, which had a similar kind of effect, but it was not Sandstorm. And I will not back down until this gets fixed. So I have made a decision that at some point over the next week, I'm going to fill out an entire document and put it on our Twitter. So all of our followers have contact to everybody's email that is responsible for getting this changed, an exact message that you can copy and paste and send to said emails. And we're going to make this change because it's not just our movement, Mike. It's our entire viewerships and families movement here that we need to get across the finish line. We've been close, but we have not crossed the finish line yet. So I'm going to help everybody get this done, and I will give you an exact formula to pass along our needs to the staff. So rounding it out, Nebraska shoots 46% from the field on 27 of 59 shooting, 38% from three on 12 of 32, 77% from the free throw line, 20 of 26 attempts there, and has 15 assists to 8 turnovers there. On the other side of things, Indiana has a 47% shot from the field, 24 of 51. They shoot 50% from three, going 9 of 18. Shoot 68% from the stripe on 13 of 19, and have a whopping 19 assists to another whopping 19 turnovers for the Hoosiers in this one. So we had a lot of traction in our tweet to involve the viewers, so let's get into that right now.
So Husker fans, let's hear from you.
So I announced as well, for every Big Ten conference win, whether it be home or away, we're going to include a giveaway. So try to encourage everybody to get involved, interact with us. We're very active on Twitter. We're growing pretty rapidly on there. So super fun, side of what we do on that side is interacting with fans. And we had a ton to get into. So Mike, let's get us started. Huskin Fanatic says, I feel the same elation that I felt after the Creighton upset last year because although Indiana is just quote-unquote Indiana, we beat a team with 5-star recruits who have dominated us for half a decade. Though we were favored to win, this was still an upset. And Mike, I don't know that I'd agree that this is necessarily an upset by all rights included, mainly because Mast played. But what I will agree with is this team was so uber talented with multiple 5 stars, very high 4 stars, and Mike, what we've talked about, it all comes down to heart, hustle, and effort.
Yeah, I mean, a win over Indiana is a win over Indiana. That name alone carries a lot of weight in the college basketball world, with the history that they have. They've kind of, been a bully to us since we joined the Big Ten. I think this win snapped a 7-game losing streak that dated back to like 1999. So, a little bit of historic stuff there. Actually the 16-point margin was the largest win against the Hoosiers since Nebraska's first win in 1920. So we're talking 100 plus years since Nebraska has beat Indiana by 16 points. Pretty damn good feeling. I can't lie. I'm not going to say I feel as great as if we beat Creighton, but it's definitely up there. Big conference win, getting off on the right foot to go into the next little stretch here that's pretty challenging in our schedule.
Haley Krull 8 says, CJ Wilcher is a huge difference maker. Love to see the improvement from last season. It's great to have Mast back. Alec is a dog and makes hustle plays every time, and it's really fun to see it all in person. And background here, I believe, if I remember correctly, Haley had driven in from like 700 some miles away for her first game of the season. So obviously a really cool game for Haley to get to see here. And Mike, again, reiterating a lot of things that we've talked about, Mast is such a key piece of this team and really makes it run. I would honestly say that maybe we don't lose this game without Mast, but it would have been a hell of a lot closer game, and he didn't even have a great stat line. But that's just the type of level of talent, defense, and leadership that he brings every single game.
Yeah, he's an incredible talent. What he does for the team, we've talked about it all season, but we can't talk about it enough. The way that he defends without fouling, the way he passes out of the high post. You mentioned we don't really have anybody passing the ball in Casey's cuts. I think Mast and Casey can get there the more they play together. His passing has been phenomenal and getting better from the high post. Just what he brings to this team is really great. And that's just Mast. Everybody has their role and everybody plays it well. And it is fun to see, live, to see on TV, however you're watching. When it clicks like it did last night, it's really a fun time.
Mark Skolnick said, under no circumstances should the Tominaga or Mast families be allowed to return to their home countries until after the season. And, obviously all jokes, but I think it really helped both of their play in this game, having, the homecoming of each of their families here for this one. And then Lamont Epp says, exceedingly pleased with the effort tonight. Nebraska dominated Blue Blood Indiana. The Big Red resides in Lincoln. And Mike, again, Indiana, maybe we've talked about, maybe not the level of team that we expect them to be as a college basketball blue blood, but I don't think you can take anything away from this. This Indiana team has elite losses. I know it's weird to say, but look at who their losses are at, Mike. I don't have it in front of me, but I know, they've lost to 3 ranked teams and Nebraska. I wish I had it in front of me to label them all, but we are pretty elite company in the Indiana loss column.
Yeah, it's not like Indiana's a bad team by any means. I could imagine this would be maybe a quad 2 win at the end of the season here. I don't think they're a terrible team, somewhere, maybe middle of the pack in the Big Ten. And I think the Big Ten's maybe a better conference than I had given it credit for at the start of the year. I think they finished non-con with the second best win percentage out of any conference. So that says a lot there. Just going to always be happy about a conference win. I don't care if it's Penn State or Purdue or Indiana or anybody, because if you get to double digit, 11, 12 wins in conference, it starts to look pretty good for your chances to, get good seeding in the Big Ten tournament, first off. And second off, maybe get an invite to the big dance. So I'm just going to celebrate every single one at a time. Obviously, the next one against Wisconsin's a big one, but couldn't be happier with the win last night.
Evan Strongwater says, aside from the obvious things like rink Mast's availability being key and Casey going off for a season-high 28 points, the hero tonight was Josiah Alec. I don't have the full box score in front of me, but would venture to guess he just about led the team in box plus or minus. And Mike, again, we talked about it already, but Alec is such a glue guy for this team. I know glue guy can sometimes be seen as a negative, but every single team needs an emotional leader and a guy that's going to do all the dirty work. And Josiah Alec, along with Juwan Gary, while maybe Gary supplies a little bit more scoring and stat filling, Josiah Alec is equally as important to this team in a leadership role.
Yeah, as I just mentioned, everybody has their role and everybody can play it well. Alec came in last night, especially with foul trouble. I think he was in the rotation a lot. Maybe, I don't want to say more than the coaches planned or anything like that, especially with Mast coming back on maybe a slight minutes restriction. So, but grabbing 8 boards, fighting for loose balls, if that's, what his role is on this team, if he does it at the level that he did last night and against Indiana, he's going to get more and more minutes. He's going to fit in that rotation because, yeah, you're right. Every team needs that. It's helpful to get those free possessions. It's helpful to close out possessions on the defensive side, grabbing those boards. It was a great game by the guy. And, he had a great quote about it not always being flamethrowers and four-wheelers, whatever that may mean. But I'd say he maybe earned a four-wheeler with his performance, I guess. I don't know. I'm not on the NIL board, but maybe somebody can hook him up.
Whizbang Hoop says, that's what happens when Casey gets a lot of minutes and a lot of shots. It might take a bit, but he will get into a rhythm. Also took the ball up the court a little bit more this game, which was of note. Casey did play a little bit of point in this one. And then Huskers Oracle says, Casey is back. We now have a complete team. We now should be thinking beyond just getting into the tournament. We should be thinking about top 2 or 3 in conference and a top 8 seed, as Andy Katz has been saying all along. And Mike, I'm honestly in a little bit of agreement here. I think that while I think, the next 3 or 4 games are going to determine a lot of what this team can be capable of, with very tough schedule. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember. We go to Wisconsin, have Purdue at home, go to Iowa, and then I think head to Rutgers for the vaunted rack game, as we mock all the time. But that's going to say a lot about this team. And if we can leave that stretch 2-2 or, God willing, 3-1, we have to seriously change the expectations of what this team can do.
I will splash a little bit water on the fire that is Husker basketball passion right now. I don't know if, I'm ready to anoint Casey being back. He had one good game, which I love to see. I hope he can keep it up. I know I was texting you and a couple other guys when he had chucked up a contested three that I'm getting a little sick and tired of seeing those, but 28 points, he had a hell of a game, especially in the second half. I think he kind of caught fire a little bit, so I hope he can keep it up. I don't know if I'm ready to talk about being top 3 or 4 in the conference yet either. The top of the conference is really good. As you mentioned, these next handful of games are really going to show us a lot. This Indiana team, not a slouch by any means, but not a top team in the conference. So taking care of business at home, which is what you would hope, is a big thing. Don't get me wrong, but I think this road test against Wisconsin and home against Purdue and then on the road against Iowa, I think those 3 games are going to really show us a lot. And I'd be willing to say we're probably not going to win all of them. I agree with you. If we go win 2 out of the next 4, I'd be pretty happy with that. If we win 3, I'd be maybe starting to jump on the other side here and talk about, a top 4 in the Big Ten Nebraska basketball team. So we'll see what the future brings, but one game at a time, in my opinion.
Chad Schroeder says, Alec, beast mode on doing the little things and leadership things. We got to focus on getting Tominaga loose to maximize the offense. Again, we kind of talked about how important it is to make sure Tominaga keeps getting shots and looks like he's in rhythm, make sure that we can develop him offensive plays. And then finally, the winner of our sweatshirt giveaway by Mike's random number generator, Andrew Hansen, says, I thought the defensive game plan was really good. The double teams and rotations were solid. The ball movement on offense was good as well. It was good to see some Tominaga threes. And Mike, let's pose this question. What kind of stat line do we need to see night in and night out from Tominaga to keep the winning flowing? If we want to get to, let's call it a 13-7 record in the Big Ten, which some people would probably say that's a reach, what kind of stats do we need to see from Tominaga night in and night out?
I mean, if you want to talk about 13 wins, I'd hope that he'd be dropping 15 points a night. If you're really going to reach, I think that is a bit of a reach personally, but if we're going to go, 10, 11, 12 wins in conference, I don't know if he has to pop off every night because this team just is so much more distributed scoring wise. We're talking, I think we have 4 or 5 guys shooting over 34% from 3. So we have a lot of shooters, this team compared to last year specifically, where it was a lot of Casey and he was kind of the focal point. I think we have a lot more distributed scoring, which I think is a good thing. We've talked so much about our depth and how there isn't much of a drop off, which is a great thing. Obviously, Casey is a great scorer. Don't get it twisted. Don't get it wrong. I don't know if he has to have the night he had last night every time for us to win. I don't really think he does. But if we want to go where we want to go, I think he does need to score somewhere around 15 a game, I would think. That'd probably be the number where I put it at.
So again, congratulations to Andrew Hansen for winning Mike's random number generator lottery for the sweatshirt giveaway. And again, make sure to follow us on Twitter at Scarlet Shoot Pod. If anytime we win a conference game, we will announce a winner of a giveaway for somebody that responds to our Huskers What Did You Think tweet. So Scarlet Shoot Pod on Twitter. Make sure you follow us on there and keep up with everything we're doing over there. Let's get into the Wisconsin preview on the other side of the break.
You are listening to the Scarlet Shootaround podcast.
All right, Mike, let's dive into the Wisconsin preview. But before we do, this segment of the show is sponsored by Tax and Business Consultants.
Yeah, this segment is brought to you by Tax and Business Consultants. They're providing all of the tax, accounting, payroll, and consulting your business needs. They partner with you to specifically tailor strategies suited to you and your business. Committed to positive client outcomes since 1961, they have been relieving stress related to taxes in all forms. Their offices are located in Blair, Columbus, and Lyons, so give them a call at 402-426-4144 or visit their website at www.tbc.tax. T as in Tominaga, B as in Bryce Williams, and C as in Coach Hoiberg.tax. Once again, that phone number is 402-426-4144. Go Big Red.
All right, Mike, so let's get into Wisconsin. This team is 10-3 on the year, 2-0 in conference. Ken Palm checks them in at number 16. They are number 19th in the net. Columbus Dispatch poll had them 5th place preseason in the Big Ten. Some notable wins for the Badgers. They have beat number 19 Michigan State on the road 70-57, number 12 Marquette at home 70-57 as well, and number 49 Virginia on a neutral court 65-41. Notable losses then for the Badgers. Lost to number 62 Providence on the road 59-72, lost to number 6 Tennessee at home 70-80, and lost to number 4 Arizona on the road in a bludgeoning 98-73. Ken Palm overall statistics offensively, the Badgers check in at 16th in the country, so an elite offensive team. Checking in 34th defensively, so a really good defensive team as well. Tempo, Mike, they play at the 314th slowest pace in the country. Notable stats, defensive rebounding, they're 10th in the country, and offensive steal percentage, they are 9th in the country, so they take very good care of the ball. Mike, taking a look at Wisconsin and some of the things that they've accomplished throughout the year, what are your big takeaways as we head into this one?
Yeah, as you had mentioned, very good on both sides of the ball. 16th on offense, 34th on defense. So they're good at what they do. They do play very slow, 346th on their offensive length of possession. So they're going to, take their time on the offensive end, find a good shot. Typically inside the arc, they don't shoot a lot of threes, but they're going to try to find a good shot. As you had mentioned, they're a great rebounding team. They're 10th in defensive rebounding. They're 9th in the nation on offensive steal percent. So they don't give the ball away easy. The Huskers aren't going to get a lot of looks. I'd venture to say the Huskers probably aren't going to have 15 steals against Wisconsin like they did against Indiana. So I think looks are going to be a little bit harder to come by for Nebraska. They're not going to get out and run as easily on steals. They're not going to, get easy putbacks for 2 on some offensive rebounds. So, the offense is going to have to come with a good game plan because it's going to be a lot of half court sets, and we're going to have to try to get guys open and find good shots.
And Mike, this Badger team is a veteran and experienced squad. They returned 71% of their minutes from last year, which is the 9th highest total in the country. So going down some of their pieces, obviously, we all know Chucky Hepburn, their point guard, Nebraska native, 6'2 junior, averaging 9, 3, and 4, shooting 39% from the field, a really bad 26% from beyond the arc. But Mike, this is an all Big Ten guy. Honorable mention last year. This year he has 1.7 steals per game. Really good defensive player. Obviously not doing as well from deep this year, but we all know he loves his mid-range game. So Chucky Hepburn always a threat to the Husker defense. Elsewhere, their center Stephen Crowell, a 7-foot sophomore, averaging 13, 8, and 2, shooting 60% from the field. A whopping 69% from 3 on only 16 attempts. So maybe a small sample size, but he's hitting a lot of them. Statistically, he's their best three-point shooter this year so far and their best rebounder as well. Another guy that sticks out at small forward, A.J. Storr, a 6'7 sophomore, averaging 15, 3, and 1, shooting 45% from the field, 30% from 3. He's a transfer in from St. John's, and he was an all-Big East freshman in 2022, and he's their leading scorer. So my couple threats on this team, but they don't go super deep. They only go about 6 deep.
Yeah, not a ton of bench minutes. They're not going to use a ton of bodies. So generally, I want to say that that's going to kind of look a lot like what Indiana tried to do against the Huskers, which is kind of a good thing to hear after Nebraska just beat them by 16. But the thing about Wisconsin is they're going to do it a lot better. They're going to work the ball inside a lot. They're a very long team. They're 22nd in average height, so they're big. They like to work the ball inside. They're not going to shoot a lot of threes. But as you mentioned, a couple dangerous pieces. Chucky Hepburn, he's not shooting as well from 3, as you said, but I think he's a little bit more comfortable. He's kind of facilitating a little more this year, I feel like. One guy that I want to point out is John Blackwell. He's a 6'4 freshman, so just coming in, getting used to the college game, but he's probably one of their better 3-point shooters. He's 12 for 26 from 3. That's good for 46%. So definitely a guy that we got to keep our eye on. He doesn't get a ton of minutes, but he'll come in and get some here or there. I want to say he's somewhere around 19-20 minutes a game, so he'll come in for a good portion. But just somebody that the defense can't forget about when he checks in for sure.
And John Blackwell, you mentioned he's a 2-time Big Ten Freshman of the Week already. He's a 3-star combo guard out of Michigan, so looks like Greg Gard may have found a diamond in the rough over there. Elsewhere, kind of rounding out the guys that are going to play, Max Klesmit, a 6'4 junior, averaging 8, 2, and 1, shooting 40% from the field, 31% from 3. He started every single game last year for the Badgers, although he's not a huge threat, kind of more of just a role player there. And then at power forward, they'll bring out Tyler Wall, a 6'9 senior, averaging 12, 6, and 1, shooting 54% from the field. Has not made a three-pointer yet on his 4 attempts, so he does have the red light, I'm assuming. Although he was a 2022 Big Ten honorable mention player and preseason All Big Ten selection this year, he's been around the block. A Brad Davison, kind of fold of a guy that's going to play, 30 years in the Big Ten. But again, Mike, they only really go about that deep. Anybody else is kind of brought in for a breather or maybe some foul trouble or something like that. But those are going to be your main threats, all guys that are averaging close to 10 points a game, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. But Mike, the story of this one is just going to be their slow tempo. Like you mentioned, they're going to play in the half court. They're 346th in offensive tempo, but they do give up quick possessions on defense as they're 93rd in the country in defensive tempo, meaning they give up relatively quick shots. This team also rebounds defensively very well, but they only give up an offensive rebound on 23% of their possessions, which is good for 10th nationally. And Mike, I think rebounding could be a huge key for the potential Husker success in this game.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the 3 games they lost, against Tennessee, Providence, and in Arizona, and it's easy. It's kind of cliche almost to have like a key for the game, but in each of those losses, they got out rebounded. So I think it's going to play a really, really big role. I think as long as, Mast and Gary and Alec can have the kind of rebounding night that we've seen from them this year, I think it gives us a good chance. Obviously, as you'd mentioned, this is a great rebounding team, especially on the defensive end. So it's tough to get those easy buckets. But that's a big focus, and I'm sure the coaches are going to have the guys ready. I'm wondering if, since they do take their time in the half court, I'm wondering, what our defense is going to look like. And since they do want to work the ball inside, I'm wondering if we're going to see that zone come out that we saw against Indiana. I know that's obviously on tape now, so maybe they're adjusting to it, in the 3-4 days they have between games here. So I'll be curious to see what we come out with to try to counter that and kind of see what we do to keep them out of the paint and try to keep them off of what they want to do on the offensive end.
And to your point about bringing out the zone, similar to Indiana, Mike, I think we talked about this off there. Wisconsin is really just a stronger version of what Indiana brought to the table. Really similar game plan. They love to work it inside. Their 2-point percentage is 85th nationally, and they're 281st nationally in 3 points attempted per field goals attempted. So they don't shoot the three much. They want to work it inside. But very interestingly enough, from this team, they don't assist very much. They're 293rd nationally in offensive assists. So very fasting. A lot of iso ball. We know from past games, Chucky Hepburn likes to do his little step back shimmer type of thing. Obviously, that's probably playing a little bit of a key factor into it. And Mike, this team doesn't shoot the three well either, the same way the Hoosiers do not. They only shoot 32.4% from beyond the arc, which is good for 219th nationally. Now, the key here, though, is that they give up the three, which could be a key for Nebraska. They are 232nd nationally in three-point defense. Obviously, Nebraska, I think, again, we talked off the air, we're up to 5 or 6 people on our roster now that are shooting over 35% from deep. So this can play to our advantage. I think this is a big opportunity for Wiltshire, obviously a big opportunity for Tominaga. And, Bryce Williams has been lighting it up from three. I believe he's up to 38% from three on the year. So, opportunities from deep for these guys are going to be available, and we're always going to see the post game come inside for Mast as well. So Nebraska maybe has some opportunities there to get points on the offensive end. So Mike, Ken Palm is projecting a 77-68 Wisconsin win, and Torvik is projecting a 76-70 Wisconsin win. So projected spread, Mike, let's throw this one at -7.5 for Wisconsin. Where are you leaning here?
I think it's tough to say, and I don't want to, once again, as I'll always say, this is not financial advice, but it's tough for me to quote unquote bet against the Huskers 2 in a row. But I think it's tough. Like you said, it's a quick turnaround in travel up to Madison. I think I'd be laying the points. I'm seeing somewhere around like a 10-point win. I'm somewhere, 10-9. Maybe like a 75-66 is kind of what I'm thinking. It all depends to me. Like you mentioned, if the Huskers can shoot the ball well beyond the arc, I think it's going to give them a great opportunity. One stat we didn't bring up, but on the defensive end, the Badgers give up a lot of assists per field goal made. So if we can penetrate that defense, drive and kick and get it to an open shooter, and we're knocking down those shots, I think the Huskers have a pretty good chance in this game. But I'm just banking on the fact that this Wisconsin team's really solid on both ends. They're going to try to do what they want to do. Top 35 in both offense and defense. This is a really well-rounded squad, so it's going to be a tough matchup for the Huskers, but we'll see what they can do.
I'm also going to take the Wisconsin number, Mike. I'm going to lay the 7.5. I think Wisconsin protects their home court very well. Their only loss at home this year is to top 10 KenPom Tennessee, and even that was a relatively close game at 10 points. I think Nebraska, like you mentioned and like we talked about, is on a short week here after an emotional win at home against Indiana, and one that everybody talked about. We really, really need to kind of keep this momentum going and keep the pace going for a berth into the tournament. Now you got to turn around, travel to a very tough environment up in Madison. I will say, though, we've gone up to Madison and won with far worse teams than this. So you never know, obviously. We've conquered our demons there before, but always going to be a tough place to play. But, Mike, the key to me is, can you have two Huskers go off for 20 points? Now, that's going to obviously stem from three-point shooting, as you alluded to, but the defense that Wisconsin's going to bring to the table is going to be very elite. We know they're going to get theirs on offense no matter what we kind of do. They're going to get to their probably 65, 70 points. Can we match that from beyond the arc? I think we're going to need two guys in double figures over the 20-point marks to make this work. But I'm going to project a 73-63 loss to the Badgers here on is it Sunday? I don't know if it's Sunday.
Sunday.
Or Saturday.
Sunday.
On Sunday. Thank you for the correction. So that is our Wisconsin review. We will go into the other side of this break and get you out of here soon.
You are listening to the Scarlet Shootaround podcast.
So, Mike, I want to start our exit speech by saying that this is going to be a very tough game. I'm not expecting the Huskers to win this one, although I very much would love them to. And I think it's very important that we stay focused on kind of our pod system. We talked about we need Nebraska to hopefully go 2-1 out of our 3-game stretch. Well, we got the first one. Now we need to try to get one out of either Wisconsin on the road or Purdue at home. Now, obviously, you'd like to get this one first, which makes Purdue almost kind of a lottery ticket. But you want to make sure that you keep pace to try to get to, an 11-win conference slate. So very important that we kind of maintain our cool and don't freak out if the Huskers do lose this game.
That's my big worry. Is it's tough being a Husker basketball fan when obviously there hasn't been a ton of success, and we get the smallest taste of it, and everybody wants to freak out and hope this is the year and say they're back. This is the team we've been waiting for. I hope it's true, but I just need to temper that expectation just the slightest bit. There's going to be losses through the season. I know we haven't had many, obviously, now, and being 12-2, it feels great being in the W column, right? So the losses are going to come. I hope it's not Sunday. It'd be a big win. It'd be definitely a Q1 win being on the road if we're talking about bracketology and what it does for our chances in March. It's a huge opportunity here. It's another, and heaven forbid we do lose it, we have another huge opportunity at home against Purdue. So as I said earlier, as I'll keep saying, to me, it's one at a time. Just got to take each game for what it's worth and just enjoy the ride. Because I think this is a really special Husker team. We got a lot of great players, and I think they play well together.
So that being said, make sure, again, you follow us on Twitter at Scarlet Shoot Pod. Keep up with us, interact with us. We post updates on net rankings, on KenPom rankings, on spread updates, on any kind of news and bits on injuries or, Coach Hoiberg's press conferences, whatever may happen. At Scarlet Shoot Pod on Twitter is your go-to spot for any of the information you may need. We'll make sure we copy and release it on there. YouTube is always released usually a day after recording, so we'll try to get that out tomorrow. For those that are on the YouTube, this is the sweatshirt that I'm rocking that will be given to the winner of our giveaway in our response of Huskers, What Do You Think? So make sure you're active on that as well. And finally, Mike, let's root on the Huskers and let's shock the world. Why can't we go up to Madison and win?
There's really no reason. Like I said, if we shoot the ball well and we beat them on the glass, I think, Huskers, maybe Huskers walk away a 10-point win. I'm not going to say that's going to happen. As I said, I think it's going to be the other way. But if they shoot the ball well and they rebound the ball well, they can beat anybody. And there's no reason why they can't do it up in Madison on Sunday.
So let's root on a big Husker win up in Madison. For myself, Blake, and co-host Mike, go Big Red.
Go Big Red, baby.